are the Nameless. We are students in EDM 310, the University of South Alabama. I am Brooklyn Rowland.
I'm Diane Boudreaux.
I'm Jasmine Stevens.
I'm Stephanie Hogue.
Okay, that's it. I am Brooklyn Rowland, and today we will be discussing Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire by Rafe, Esquith, Part 1 and Chapters 12 and 13. We will be joined by Jasmine Stevens to discuss Part 1, and then you will hear from Stephanie Hogue and Diane Boudreaux discussing Chapters 12 and 13. But let's start by talking about the prologue. I meant to do that a while ago. Dang it, we'll have to cut that out. Okay. Rafe says, in a world that considers athletes and pop stars more important than research scientists and firefighters, it has become practically impossible to develop kind and brilliant individuals. Rafe says that this is one of the reasons he almost gave up teaching entirely. Rafe tells the story of a young girl in his class that was struggling with a science project. Due to faulty equipment, she couldn't seem to get a wick to burn. Rafe attempts to help her, and when he gets into the zone, as he puts it, he accidentally lights his hair on fire. And yet he was so enthralled by helping his student, he didn't even realize it. After all was said and done, and the experiment was over, he realized that if he could care so much about teaching that he didn't notice his hair was on fire, then he was moving in the right direction. At that moment, he vowed to always teach like his hair was on fire. Rafe's purpose with his book, Teach Like Your Hair is on Fire, is to help people realize that excellence takes sacrifice, mistakes, and enormous amounts of effort. Now, Miss Jasmine Stevens will join us. Hi. So, tell us what you thought about Part 1.
Part 1 is titled, There's No Place Like Home. Room 56 is described as a safe haven for Mr. Rafe's students. He strongly emphasizes respect and trust inside his classroom. Alex is a student from a different third grade classroom. Mr. Rafe describes in which a situation where the student and the teacher have an issue with the backpack. He loses a lack of respect from the student. Room 56 was a classroom that was special and fear was not a factor. 4 parts are described that in Mr. Rafe's classroom that does ensure his classroom remains a place of excellence without using fear to keep his students in line.
Okay, what are the 4 parts that Rafe uses in his classroom to be sure that he has respect without scaring the students?
The 4 parts that he described is replace fear with trust, children depend on us, so be dependable, discipline must be logical, and you are a role model.
Okay. In your opinion, what would be considered the most important to use in your classroom?
I feel as though all of the points that were pointed out were important. The part that stood out the most to me is discipline must be logical. In this section, he describes how important it is that punishment fits the crime. Many students misbehave in the classroom, but the choice of punishment is what matters the most. An example that he uses is that John does not do his math homework, so his punishment is to miss out during the afternoon recess. There's no connection between this. When the teacher becomes unfair to their students, the lack of respect and behavior problems become a factor.
Okay. What skills did you learn that would What skills did you learn that would be successful in your reading?
After reading Part 1, I grasped many skills that I believe would help in teachers in the classroom. Many teachers worry about looking bad or not being liked from their students. The actual problem is that the students are more afraid than the teachers are. Teachers are major role models and students depend on teachers. If we constantly disappoint our students, we cannot expect them to depend on us in any way. If a promise is made, it must follow through. By being a role model, you are constantly watched. Take the opportunity to leave a positive mark and not ruin it. Never become frustrated, remain positive and patient, and remember to teach like your hair's on fire.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. And we'll be right back with Stephanie and Diane.
And we're back. I'm Stephanie, and this is Diane, and she's going to tell us a little bit about chapters 12 and 13.
Okay, well, in chapters 12 and 13, the teacher, Mr. Rafe, talks about how he came about showing up to school at 6:30 in the morning with a group of kids who voluntarily came to school with him to work on just solving problems, and not necessarily math problems, but also like word problems, everyday problems, science problems, stuff like that. These children are volunteering their own time to come up to school to do work, you know, way before they even have to be there. The teacher helps them to learn the proper problem-solving skills that they will need for the rest of their lives. He also started a film club which taught the children responsibility, as well as stuff about the films, because they, took the DVDs home for the weekend, and, if they brought it back and it was scratched, or if they brought the questionnaires back and they were torn up, they were penalized from the film club, and they weren't allowed to take a DVD home for, like a week or two or something like that. But they also formed friendships and bonds with other students in their classroom or in this club, because they would, get a group together and go home and watch a DVD together so that they could discuss the questions together so that they could learn more about their answers and stuff. So I thought that was pretty neat.
That's pretty interesting. Okay, Diane, so according to Rafe, why is it important that children learn and develop the process of thinking and analyzing?
Well, he says that it helps children solve problems, but not just in a math classroom kind of environment. It also helps them in everyday life. Whenever they grow up and they're on their own and they're faced with a problem, just the simple steps that they take, that would help them solve these problems. He also says, one of the first lessons that he teaches his kids is that pencils don't solve problems, people do. So you need to put down those pencils and understand what challenge lies ahead of you.
Okay. So what are the 4 basic steps to problem solving?
Well, the first one is understanding the problem or collecting data. The second one is choosing an appropriate strategy to solve the problem, like acting it out, drawing a picture, making a chart or a table, talking about it, stuff like that. The third one is to actually solve the problem, and this does involve picking up a pencil or, using a computer, some kind of form of technology maybe. And the fourth one is to analyze it, talking together about, how you answered this question. Does the question and answer, do they match up? Do they make sense? Stuff like that.
Okay, so what is the most important thing a teacher can do in order to help children solve problems?
Well, especially with younger children, the most important thing that he portrayed in his book was just to help, to work with them, to, show them that while he is the teacher and he does know a little bit more about what the subject matter is, that they'll learn from it, and that, give them the courage to at least try it on their own. A lot of students come into a classroom with a new teacher or kids that they don't know thinking, I can't do this problem because I don't know how. And, he just kind of instills them that courage to, say, I don't know how, but I'm going to learn.
Thank you, Diane.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And I'm just going to sum it all up for us. Rafe had a few things that he wanted us to take home in his epilogue, and some of them are that he said that it's a thankless job and it's not going to get any easier, and most of the kids who walk into our classrooms don't even begin to comprehend how education can help them improve their lives. Many administrators have already sold their souls years before. The publishing companies and testing services, they work together to take away any creativity, passion, and freedom that you have as a classroom teacher. Teaching the same thing, they want you to teach the same thing at the same time, and for the same reasons. And he also says that you will be continually looking for a reason to believe that your job as a teacher is important and that you can help somebody. He said for himself, as usual, it was a student who proved to be his best teacher, and that's what gave him a reason to believe. And he reads a former student, Janet's essay, and he said that she's a student now at Notre Dame. Is that right? I'm sorry. Is that right? Okay. She wrote an essay for her class, and she said that Rafe changed her life, and that his class was the most memorable, and those are things that he uses to help him to continue to believe that he can make a difference in students' lives. Okay, and that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us. What else was I supposed to say?
We'll see.
Oh, we'll see you next time.
And remember, teach like your hair's on fire.